All right, so I hope everyone is seeing a PowerPoint slideshow. Are folks seeing that?
Yep.
All right, great. All right, so hi everyone. Thank you for coming to the last in our series of the our Open Access Week workshops. This workshop today is going to focus on getting started with open educational materials. My name is Veronica Bielat, I know most of you. So I am the Student Success Librarian here at Wayne State University, and I'm also the English and Political Science Subject Specialist. So today's presentation is going to take a little bit of a different tack and not so much focus on what OER is and defining OER, but maybe how we can reframe OER and think of using open educational resources to improve creating culturally responsive curriculum resources for our students in our classes. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just in general, what are student success metrics? And there is a real push now, not just from the national level for especially institutions, public institutions of higher education, to demonstrate that they are supporting student success, but it's also an important issue related to equity, to make sure that all students who enter our public institutions have an opportunity to complete their degree successfully and move on with career and being able to successfully live their lives. So some of the metrics that are used are increasing student degree completion, decreasing time to graduation, reducing barriers to attending college, and closing attainment gaps for underrepresented populations. Now, the thing is that most of the time, this is really related to dollars. Like all of this stuff is impacted by the cost of attending college. And textbooks and course materials do play a role in that, because if students make the decision to not purchase a textbook or course materials for a course because of expense, that can result, and we know from research that impacts their ability to successfully complete a class. Not successfully completing a class may lead to that sort of circumstance piling up and may result in them not completing their degree. Because they have to repeat classes, it will decrease or increase their time to graduation. Textbook costs can be a barrier to attending college. I think at Wayne State University, the last time I checked our numbers, our annual estimated average cost for course materials, including textbooks, was $1,200. I believe that is decreasing here due to a couple of commercial programs that are in place, but it still can be a barrier. And I think one of the things we need to remember is that students have to make short-term financial decisions. And I don't think that we really understand the pressure that students, especially students who are maybe first in their family, first generation students, maybe students who are from low socioeconomic status families, or students who are on their own, which is definitely in a school like Wayne State with urban populations is a part of our population. And so I think what we don't understand is, especially in September, the financial pressure that students are under. They may not only be trying to purchase textbooks, but they're trying to come up with funds for a place to live, and funds for transportation, and funds for tuition. And so sometimes they make a short-term decision of not purchasing materials that has long-term consequences. But that has to be done because that may be their only option at that time. So these are those success metrics, and course materials do impact that. And we do think of open educational resources a lot of times in terms of cost savings. But what if we think of them from a different perspective? What if we think of the resources that we use in the classroom from a learning perspective and think about considering open educational resources for our classrooms from a different angle? So I have a question for you all. And I know that some of us don't teach here, but we could even think about this from our own experiences as students. So maybe if you want to unmute yourself, or if you want to just drop something in the chat, what do you think a commercially published textbook provides for students in terms of a learning experience? What does that book, that the use of that resource, whether it's print or online, give to students in terms of a learning experience? And does anybody have any ideas or want to offer anything? Thanks, Karen. Yes, vetted broad experience, and for a lot of instructors and faculty, that vetting, that quality review is something that they think is critical. I think, Karen, though, you've landed on something that I think is also important, and that is that it's not local, and that this is going to be a very broad introduction to a topic. Okay. Did anybody else have anything they'd like to talk about? All right. Thanks. So we can ask at this point, what's different? What makes an open educational resource different than commercially published textbooks and other commercially published materials used in courses? So number one, OER is openly licensed. And that means that students who are using it, and the instructor obviously, can retain a copy, they can reuse a copy, they can remix it, they can revise it, and they can redistribute it. So those are known as the 5 R's of open. It is available without cost to the student, and of course, also to the instructor. But I think what's most important in our discussion today is that the content can be customized by you, the instructor, to meet your instructional goals. So that is, I think, a really important part. And it is true that commercial textbooks do, in many cases, provide for customization, but that customization has to be done in conjunction with one of their staff people, and is usually something that takes quite a bit of time. It's not something that can be done on the fly. My experience with customizing content was that it had to be done, completed at least 3 months before the beginning of the semester. And if we think about things such as the election in, oh gosh, I hope I got the date right, 2016, that was a very unexpected outcome given the forecasts. And if I were teaching a political science class, I would have probably wanted to change some stuff in my textbook immediately. And although it's true, especially in the age of LMS, learning management systems like Canvas and Blackboard and Desire to Learn are pretty ubiquitous, and you can add content. I think sometimes having that content be integrated directly into the text can be helpful. I know from a student just from talking to students, it can be challenging to sort of jump around and in and out of resources when you're trying to learn new content. So what the bottom line is here is that, whoops, I think I just, sorry, I was trying to, is that our content can be culturally responsive. So we can make this content in an open educational resource customized to reflect the local, the cultures, the ethnicities, the perspectives, the systemic issues that provide tangible examples that speak to your students in the classroom. And I think that is really critical. I'm just thinking, frankly, about a math class and a statistics problem. And I really struggled in math. And I feel like if I would have had examples that drew from things that I could identify with, that made sense to me in a local context, or that would have been really helpful. Or I think about public policy and like health public policy courses and how much that would benefit from understanding what is happening here. And I think that's especially critical for urban institutions like Wayne State University. I think I'm just kind of taking a guess here, but it would be my guess that urban institutions tend to graduate students who stay fairly well situated in that geographic area. So, and I know that's very true for Wayne State University. We have a huge impact on the state's economy. So graduating students who really understand what's going on here, what they learned is going to impact their communities, their localities, how it's understood in the context of our state, could be extremely helpful. So let's talk about what open educational resources is not. And open educational resources are not just stuff you find on the web. Open educational resources are still copyrighted. The authors of open educational resources, or OER, still hold their copyright. That is not something that is taken away from them because they've made it available. The license that is attached to that OER is critical. This is just like that copyright statement you find in a commercially published book. An open license clearly sets forth the conditions of reuse. And not all open licenses make something an OER. So that's important to understand, that those 5 R's that we talked about, that ability to remix, to redistribute, to download a copy for yourself, those things are critical to that material being an open educational resource. It's important also that issue related to quality that Karen mentioned earlier when we had that brief discussion. Many open educational resource projects, especially open textbook projects, are grant supported by public institutions, and they are produced by educational institutions, and they have a peer review process or peer editing process incorporated into that publication. And many of these open educational resources are discoverable in organized repositories. And that's really important because from an instructor perspective, it can be challenging to try to find a resource that meets your criteria. And so these organized repositories make searching for them much easier. So let's talk about culturally responsive textbooks and so a couple examples that I found. So this particular book, The Environmental Politics and Policy of Western Public Lands, was produced by Open Oregon, and the state of Oregon has an extremely robust support system for publishing open textbooks. And they are very much interested in publishing books that cover more niche topics or things that are locally or geographically responsive to the area that they are in. So for us here in the Midwest, this might not be a critical book, but I just want to tell you a little story about it because I think it's important to understand how open textbooks can sometimes come to be. So in this particular case, there was sort of a seminal work out there. It was by Charles Davis, and it was called Western Public Lands and Environmental Politics. And it was last published in 2001, but Dr. Davis had since retired. He really didn't have an interest in doing a new edition. And this particular subject, as we know, just if we look at the news, is more and more critical in the West. Graduating, and again, graduating those people who have an understanding of what is going on in their geographic area is super important, especially in public institutions. So there were these two authors of this open textbook approached Dr. Davis and said, hey, we want to create an open textbook based on your book. Would you be willing to help us? And he was very much willing. And so sometimes the lesson here is all you have to do is ask. And you never know the willingness of our experts to share their expertise. So they updated the book and they made sure that they included topics such as endangered species and renewable energy siting, which is a big issue in public lands, fracking, Native American sovereignty, and land use rebellions. And so those kind of topics were brought into this new version. And this is an interesting case also in which there is a print version that is available. You can purchase a paperback version, it's $35, or you can use the digital version of the book free through the Open Oregon Open Educational Resources site. And I do have a list at the end of this PowerPoint of all of the resources if you want to visit them. So that is an example of a culturally responsive text that was developed to meet the needs and updated to reflect content that is important now. Whoops, I'm sorry. Oh, I know what I did. Sorry about that. I went to the book, clicked on the wrong place. Give me just a second. I'm gonna have to get back here to my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing now something research methods in psychology. Yep, okay, good. So this particular book is Research Methods in Psychology. You'll see it's in its 4th edition. There's actually a webinar that is linked at the end of this PowerPoint that talks about the development of 4 different open textbooks, and this is one of them. So this particular author, one of the authors, Carrie Cutler, was trying to get corrections made in a commercially published textbook that she was using in a large enrollment psychology course. And she had contacted the publishers over and over and received no response. And so she decided to adapt an open textbook using a grant from her institution. So what she ended up doing, this particular book has a Canadian version. It was initially developed by BC Campus, which is British Columbia open access open textbook project that they have. So she added 30% more content. She trimmed text she didn't need. She actually fixed some insensitive language. And so this 4th edition, I'm sorry, actually they had taken the published version of this, the commercially published. They also removed copyrighted material. And then they developed this 1st edition, and now they are on the 4th edition of this particular text. So this is a widely used text, very comprehensive. And you can see from the description here that this is a peer-reviewed interinstitutional project. So this is something, you know, developed by instructors for instructors who understand what is critical in these kinds of courses. And then I just wanted to talk about some OER repositories that are available. So there's three that are probably the most used. One is OpenStax, and OpenStax is an open textbook project from Rice University. It was a very well-funded project and pretty much covers most of the what we would consider foundational gen ed courses. So I'm just going to quickly click the link. I'm not sure if that's going to change for you. Are you seeing a web page or still seeing the PowerPoint? Okay, so I'm going to stop my share for just a second and reshare my screen. Okay, so this is what the OpenStax sites looks like. They have open textbooks available in a number of subjects. If you create an account here, you have access to lots of resources. They have test banks, answer guides. They have a full LMS integration. So if you talk to your librarian at your institution, they will be able to help you with that finding that integration in Canvas. We use Canvas here at Wayne State, and in Canvas you can find the OpenStax integrations in something called Canvas Commons. You could just bring it right into your course with everything, test banks, chapters all set up, everything. And if you can see the subjects that are covered. It includes, if you have first year classes for students, it includes some of those, the college success. So it has a really nice student success textbook instead of making them buy something for a college success course. I think this would be a good way to start with the integration of open educational resources. And then, of course, you know, the basics courses that are usually part of that gen ed foundational sequence. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go back here. Share my screen. And then we have the Open Textbook Library. Open Textbook Library is really wonderful because not only do they have over 900 open textbooks listed, but they also have reviews. So you can look at a review of that textbook. Those reviews are done by faculty from other institutions. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to go to the Open Textbook Library really quickly. And share that screen. So here is the Open Textbook Library. You can see they have 952 books listed now. You can search the library for open textbooks. And so, for example, if you wanted to look at a book in business, you could just see the business books that are available. And you can see, for example, here is this business communication book. It has 34 reviews. It's gotten 4.5 stars. If you click on read more, you can see not only all of the chapters, the different ways that you can access it, their Creative Commons license, and you can also see the reviews and what they say. And you can see where these faculty are from, different colleges and universities, community colleges. So this particular text has been widely reviewed. And let me go ahead and go back to our PowerPoint. Finally, another repository is the OER Commons. So the OER Commons is a way to search for open content, and it goes much beyond open textbooks. So the OER Commons is a really nice way to locate resources. And I don't do much PowerPointing in Zoom, so I'm sorry if I'm making you dizzy. So this is what the OER Commons looks like. So for example, Wayne State does have a group in OER Commons. So you can search by institution. We don't have a lot. I'm hoping to improve that this year. You can join our Wayne State group if you'd like to. If you're from Wayne State University and would like to join this group and submit content, so you can see the kinds of things that we have available. Most of these resources are hosted someplace else. So they are listed in the OER Commons, but they might be hosted in our institutional repository or our digital commons, or in the case of this content here, here's like America during the 1918 influenza pandemic, very timely considering what we are going through. If we click on this one, we'll see that this particular resource is housed in the Digital Public Library of America. And you might be saying, well, why is this listed here? Well, this particular exhibition was created by our School of Information Sciences, students in Dr. Bodian's course, Metadata in Theory and Practice. So that's one of the reasons that is listed here, is this is something that was created by Wayne State University, even though its home is in the DPLA. But you can discover it here in the OER Commons. Okay, just going to go back to my PowerPoint here. So, whoops, sorry about that. Oh, I'm gonna make myself dizzy. So, you might be asking at this point, how do I learn more about what open educational resources are, what Creative Commons licensing is, and how I can adapt or adopt open educational resources for my course, or how may I help my faculty at my institution learn more about OER. So this MI ExplOER is a project of the MIALA, the Michigan Academic Libraries Association, Open Educational Resources Interest Group. And this summer, we adapted a set of learning modules from Texas that are a self-paced course to learning more about open educational resources. This course has 10 modules. It is something that you can share with your faculty if you'd like to. At the end of, when they complete all of the modules, you can take a certification quiz and receive a certificate. So that's really nice because, especially at the community college level, but even in other institutions, for faculty's promotion and tenure packets, and also for any staff at your institution who might need to demonstrate professional development, or Miriam, I think I'm thinking of you, students who might want to add something to their resume, that's a certification. You will, if you pass the questions in the certification, and you will receive a certificate that will be emailed to you that has that you successfully completed this course. What's really nice also is each of the modules are independent of each other, so you don't have to have completed a previous module to understand the content in another module. So for example, if you just wanted faculty to learn about Creative Commons licensing, you could do a presentation using the Creative Commons module. So this is a really wonderful resource. We intended it. It is Michigan focused. So again, culturally responsive. This is looking at Michigan's OER landscape, or we situate actually this instruction in Michigan's OER landscape, but it can be used by anyone in the state of Michigan. We created it so that it was available to anyone in the state, but the audience is primarily higher institutions, higher education institutions. So students, faculty, and staff in college level, in college level institutions across the state. So, and then finally, the last, whoops, I just clicked on my link. Let me go back to my PowerPoint here. Finally, I have a list of resources at the end that covers the things that we talked about, including the link to the course. So you can have that.